Is Ripple going to donate some of the escrow to XRP to the US government? With the Clarity Act, the way it sits now, Ripple would be forced to offload some of its XRP. Could this go to the IMF, the United States, or countries willing to build CBDCs on the XRP ledger? We need to explore this right now. We also have some great updates from Crypto Erie and a few other people here in the XRP space. It could be a jam-packed video. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of it. So this is from Unknown DLT. It says, in order for Ripple to comply with the Clarity Act, not owning more than 20% of the total asset, it has two options. Transfer 15 to 20% of the escrow to the United States. Once the Clarity Act is approved, it must declassify the 1,700 contracts. Some of those contracts do include NDAs, and disclose the owners of the escrow. If they choose the first option, they will give the IMF a free pass to set a price for XRP. He says, in my opinion, this has already been done, and then adopt it as a new ESDR, standard drawing rights. Whatever happens, the escrow is pre-allocated. And we did get confirmation this week from David Schwartz saying just that. Look at this. Ripple could sell the right to receive the tokens released from escrow, or even sell the accounts the escrows complete into. But the XRP still can't circulate until the release dates. What this means, guys, is every month 1 billion XRP gets released from escrow. If that XRP is spoken for through some of these contracts, that XRP would be allocated. Usually Ripple relocks about 70%. We've seen a lot of that happen this year. Last year was closer to 80% being relocked. So if you unlock 1.7 billion would go back into escrow. Now we're hearing for the first time confirmation from the CTO at Ripple saying that the escrow could be pre-bought. It just, even if somebody pre-buys it, it still has to go through the unlock periods. That is a really big revelation that we all learned this week. Now, exploring this post a little bit more, the Clarity Act requirements and Ripple's options. The Clarity Act, which passed in 2025, so it passed the House in 2025. So this is the House version. This is not official law yet, so just understand that. Sets a 20% ownership cap for issuers on digital commodities like XRP, for it to be categorized as a mature blockchain system regulated by the CFTC, not the SEC. Ripple must reduce its XRP holdings under this cap or risk its token being classified as a security. Another freaking fight. Two main options. We did discuss these already. 15 to 20% in escrow could be gifted. Disclose contracts and owners linked to the escrow. So to prove that they don't own this 35 billion, maybe half of it is already spoken for. Who owns that? They would need to provide those details, which could be really interesting. That could give us a very good understanding if BlackRock or JP Morgan or any of these other financial institutions that we speculate on actually do own some of that escrow. That is really juicy, right? That is really something I want to know. And then, could Ripple gift escrowed XRP to the US government? In theory, circulating in the community, as stated in the post, if Ripple could transfer some portion of the XRP escrow into the US government in order to meet the threshold, technically experts have discussed operational methods that would let Ripple transfer large portions of its escrow XRP to government-controlled addresses, but this likely would require full resets of the account keys and could be logistically complex. So the US government would need to set up brand new accounts for this XRP to be moved into. It couldn't be something that Ripple just gives you the account and somebody has the seed phrase because, you know, safety and security, right? It says there is no legal precedent or confirmed government plan for the US to directly receive or own gifted XRP from Ripple. And Ripple's legal counsel has previously denied that seizure or forced transfer of escrowed XRP to this government is likely or legally justified. So, you know, they've talked about this. The US government, there was conversations in the community last year that people were worried that the government could come in and just take the escrow away from Ripple. That is something that has just been speculated on. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that was something that the community was talking about. Most references in this scenario are speculative and driven by analysts or social media posts, just to be fully transparent. So guys, what do you think here? Is Ripple going to end up having to gift a portion of this escrow away? Is it already pre-bought or sold? This is pretty exciting to get into. And then also we got November, right? We have the implementation of ISO happening this month, November 22nd. What is going to happen with that? I'll make a complete video here for you guys here in the next day or two to give you everything that you need to know. But today marks the beginning of November, this month in which all or almost all central and commercial banks will speak the same language, ISO 20022. Through this new language, institutions will be able to implement instant settlement using APIs that connect to DLT. Most people still don't know what this means and a huge change it will bring to the financial system. Ripple has been preparing for this moment for over a decade. XRP is the technology that will be adopted. It was created by the US for this purpose. There is no other technology that is neutral, efficient, cheap, fast, and secure. XRP will be the absolute leader in cross-border payments worldwide. I like the post, you know, that was pretty sassy. All right, let's play this now here from Crypto Eerie. Excuse me.
It is something to behold when you talk about decentralization. And I think that many people admire that, and rightly so. And I think that with the new amendments that are coming and have recently been approved, which I hope we get a chance to talk a little bit about, we finally now are becoming a chain that is getting ready to really adopt institutional finance.
Hell yeah.
The amendments like the most recent one, the multi-purpose token that just went through, which can embed really rich data. And we've got privacy coming, like I talked about, the permission decks. There are some features and benefits coming to the ledger that are going to allow for that institutional adoption, which is super exciting because prior to these amendments, it has really been the retail entities that have been using it. Originally, when I first got into the ecosystem, we were using XRP to tip each other, to give each other tips.
Yep,
you know, it was a transfer of value, and it was something that was built by Weitza Wind, who is part of XRPL Labs. He now has the Zaman wallet, and that was such a success, and it was so adopted that, again, that's another utility that really was embraced by the retail investors. And yeah, so I think that, if you ask me, why do people hold the digital asset XRP? Some even now will tell you, I hold it because I want to use it in a mechanism that's going to provide yield. And those new yield opportunities are now there. So yes, it's too hard to just give one answer why people hold XRP.
Yeah, you got Strobe, you got Flare, you have all of this new DeFi being built out to give you some type of return. Obviously, know the risks before you jump in, but it is getting really exciting. Now, Digital Asset Investor did have this clip here. I didn't know if I wanted to play it or not, but I thought there were some things in it that do speak to a larger problem with both parties in the crypto industry. And, I like to bring stuff on that kind of questions the narrative and it really kind of opens the mind to a different alternative thinking. And let's just play it and we'll talk about it.
So if you look at Operation Choke Point 2.0, I personally...
Sorry about that. I didn't know it was going to be that loud.
I believe that was an operation between the Federal Reserve, the asset managers like BlackRock, the SEC and the corrupt leadership, and the lobby that bought the Biden administration in order to choke the market so that it could install companies like Celsius and FTX and make the market look really, really bad, where BlackRock can suddenly come in and get an ETF approved, and the banks can suddenly come in and say, hey, we'll take out Silvergate, Signature, and Silicon Valley Bank that were servicing the crypto businesses, and then we'll find out how we have our own little solution. In Goldman Sachs, you can start doing some trading. JP Morgan, you can do some of this. Fidelity, Bank, BlackRock, you can all start doing that. And we'll persuade as many people as possible to put their Bitcoin in an ETF. And then the investment banks came along and said, hey, why don't we do strategy? Why don't we create this service where we can get as many companies as possible to put Bitcoin in the public markets? And then what we'll do is we'll get a company like Cantor Fitzgerald, who is a primary dealer connected to the Federal Reserve. We'll get him to create, or we'll create Cantor Fitzgerald to create a way for people to borrow against their Bitcoin. And then we can all issue fiat currency loans.
Everybody looks really intense in this clip. I don't know what it is, but everybody's real serious. Excuse me, I just needed to break that because wow.
And we've now got 17% of the Bitcoin supply in treasury companies, in ETFs, and then obviously Satoshi's coin and stuff. And they're going to lever the shit out of Bitcoin and try and persuade as many people to borrow against their Bitcoin. And I believe that they will scam a lot of people out of their Bitcoin. But their game now is we've got this two-tiered Bitcoin economy. And sadly, they engineer the system so that you want to use theirs. They make it where it's tax efficient to hold it in your retirement fund. And they make it easier for you to pass on inheritance. So a lot of people are falling for that trap. And I think it's all part of leverage that they'll gain when we negotiate into this multipolar world.
Guys, there is obviously a lot of very big institutions that are now playing in the crypto market, and they mean business. They will manipulate the markets as they have done with every other market in history. Banks are not your friends here. They are against you. They are trading against you. And we have these big liquidity events where people that are logging the market just get wiped out. These institutions are going to be surgical. Also, when you actually own the asset and you have it in your wallet and it's taken off an exchange, that is your asset. But if you're participating through some of these stocks and these ETFs, the custodian that you're buying that through actually has the ownership of that asset. And so if something happens to that custodian, obviously there's a whole other host of issues, just like if an exchange went down. But there are big players in this, right? Just worry about your holdings, worry about what you're going to do with your holdings, where you're going to keep those safe. But the institutions are coming after your crypto. The scammers are coming after your crypto. Be safe. That's all I'm trying to say here. All right. Bank XRP says from SBI Holdings October 31st report, RLUSD supply surged from 455 million to 900 million, basically doubling in 1 quarter. Hello, let's get it. Yes, sir. Ripple expansion acquired Hidden Road, and now it's called Ripple Prime. Acquired Rail. Is that going to be Rail Prime or no, Ripple Rail? Does Ripple Rail sound good? I don't know. We're going to have to come back to that. Acquired G Treasury. Definitely going to have to change that name. Maybe R Treasury? I don't know. We're going to have to get some cool names for these companies. Best names down below. We'll tweet them out and hopefully Ripple picks them up. XRP metrics. Here's the market cap. Ripple holds 5 billion XRP, 35 billion under escrow. And here is all of that kind of in here. Recent initiatives by Ripple. Here's the growth. Here's the acquisitions. Here's some of the supply here. A lot of information SBI puts out here. You can see Ripple, you can see Chainlink here. You can see a bunch of other players and institutional. There's a lot of things happening here with SBI, as you can see. And then of course, here is the invested in US company engaged in the XRP treasury begins Ripple SBI. You have Cas Laurens here doing some good, I was going to say good finally, but I think that's that's probably being too harsh. I know there was a lot of people frustrated that Cas Laurens continues to take profit, but at the end of the day, a lot of these other like Solana and BNB and Ethereum and all of these founders, they've all done this too. But it's good to see that they're using some of this XRP to put back and try to build up. And it's okay. Ripple's RLUSD, which is already the New York Department of Financial Services green list, is currently being issued in the US. The plan to begin listing it in Japan, also Europe. I'd imagine you're going to have RLUSD everywhere. Also, we did talk about this news about 5 or 6 days ago. Mastercard making moves towards zero hash. What this means is zero hash has recently expanded its stablecoin offerings by integrating RLUSD stablecoin. This allows zero hash clients, including major fintechs and payment companies, to use RLUSD. This partnership includes Revolt, which along with zero hash is helping Ripple to broaden RLUSD adoption. Mastercard is advanced talks to acquire zero hash, a leading provider in stablecoin infrastructure. So Mastercard is making a play here for a company that uses RLUSD. Remember, there is only so much infrastructure out in the world, and the Visas and the Mastercards and the PayPals, they need to be able to compete at scale. You got to understand, you have all of these financial institutions now competing for a small slice of the cake. Ripple's already been doing some of these big business and acquiring some of this stuff. I do think it's only going to start heating up over the next few years here. We also have Ripple Swell kicking off next week on the 4th and 5th of November. I'm going to bring you everything you need to know, all the updates on this channel, guys. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Have a good weekend. Have a good Sunday. I'll see you next time. Peace.